Hey, welcome back to another episode of How to ADC. This week discussing lane states, wave states, and when and how you should implement these wave states into your gameplay. So a while back, I actually introduced a video on introduction to tempo and basically how it works. So if you guys want a small little recap, basically tempo is just how you see the game in a more macro perspective, or it's basically just a more large scale portion of the game rather than looking at the mini scale micro mechanics. And this is something that actually helps you keep a good rhythm into the game and is super important to becoming a good ADC player. However, the thing is, to understand all of this, we actually have to take into factor a lot about wave states and how to know when a wave is pushing, when a wave is freezing, or how to actually manipulate an even wave state lane. Even then, if we actually know how to manipulate these waves, what are the benefits of certain scenarios? Like, what is the benefit of freezing? What is the benefit of pushing? And what is the benefit of an even lane state? That's actually going to be the whole purpose of this video today, so let's just hop straight into it. First of all, we obviously have to explain what really is a wave state. Wave states in its most simplest form are basically where are your minions situated in the bot lane. However, as you guys know, there is a lot to take into factor when you're taking this into consideration. The list can go from pushing, slow pushing, freezing, soon to be freezing, even wave states, and people could pull the wave level 1, people could pull the wave into tower, and basically the list goes on and on and on. To keep it simple and to dumb it down a bit, we are actually only going to be focusing on the main 3 at the moment: pushing, freezing, and even wave states. So to start off with, let's look at even wave states. What this means is that both minions actually just meet each other in the middle and they just keep auto attacking each other. It's basically exactly like how you see it in the beginning of games. If you go into the creator tool to check it out, you can actually see these 2 wave of minions actually clashing against each other. And if you sit there for a bit longer, you can actually see that it's not interrupting this wave even if you leave it on for, let's just say, 5 or 10 minutes. This happens because minions from both sides of the rift, red side and blue side, actually spawn at the same time. So let's just say the red side minions are spawning at 105. That means the blue side minions are spawning at 105. And there are intervals of 30 seconds. 105, 135, 205. So red minions spawn at 105, blue minions spawn at 105. Red minions spawn at 135, blue minions spawn at 135. And then it just continues on with that repeating fashion. However, this even wave state is typically not kept for long because when bot laners auto it as an outside force, obviously it adds more damage to the minions, and this effect would actually cause the wave to go in an uneven wave state. Often more than not, when the wave is in an even state, it means that the bot lane is actually less volatile or non-volatile. It basically means that there is not much action happening and you guys are just chillaxing, relaxing, because both bot lanes have the same pushing power. For example of different pushing powers, right? We are actually going to bring in Jhin Karma versus Caitlyn Seraphine. So for Jhin Karma, Jhin, I would say, has around a 3 out of 5 in pushing power. This is because of his reloading tactic, and he just can't push as hard as certain ADCs. Karma, on the other hand, actually is one of the best supports for pushing with her mantra Q and her Q in general. So we take that into consideration. They are an 8 out of 5. Caitlyn Seraphine, on the other hand, is one of the best pushing powers in ADCs, as her Q actually goes through all the minions, and with her headshot, she just does a lot of damage to minions overall. Seraphine, on the other hand, has longer cooldowns than Karma, with her Q being a very long cooldown, and she doesn't have as much pushing power as Karma. This makes her a 3 out of 5. So Jhin Karma being an 8 out of 10, and Caitlyn Seraphine being an 8 out of 10, this basically means that no matter what, if both teams are trying to shove the wave against each other, it will just be an even lane state. But is it actually bad that your wave state is like this and your wave is not pushed in all the time or frozen all the time? No, not really. An even wave state in the bot lane usually means it's a good medium between both teams. This means that they're both evenly matched, and alongside, they can still get ganked by your ally jungler, but you can also get ganked by the enemy jungler as well. So if you are in a winning scenario, you typically don't like keeping an even wave state, as using different wave states, it does help out to push leads better. So if you want to manipulate an even wave state in the game because basically your wave is bad, all you have to do is push the wave into their tower and make sure no enemy minions are attacking your minions. This makes it so basically when the minions come back, they'll just clash each other, and that's an even wave state again. And that brings us along to our next topic, which is pushing waves. Pushing waves in its simplest form basically is just you're autoing minions so the minions get pushed into the enemy's towers. However, when you are pushing in a wave from, let's just say, your side of the tower versus the opponent's tower, it is completely different and you have to use it in different scenarios. So let us take a look from our side of the wave to know exactly what I mean by this. So you can see here in this scenario that the enemy champions actually pushed the wave into our tower first, and we had to push their wave into their tower so we could reset, as they reset already. This is obviously because we don't want to be an item behind, because when they reset, they're going to get, let's just say, a longsword, and we are going to be sitting on a puny Dorn's Blade. Comparatively, when we are actually only pushing into their tower, we could see that our personal goal is just to whittle down their tower, and if we see the enemy champion, we try to whittle them down as well. Now, pushing in a wave can definitely have its benefits if you're winning, but if you are not attentive enough and die to a gank, it may become your downfall. Some of its benefits may include being able to freely poke down the enemy champion while they're autoing CS, stop their support from roaming, you are able to get turret plates, and you are able to secure objectives for your jungler like dragons or rift scuttlers. However, do have to be very attentive, because when you are trying to push this lead, the enemy jungler could actually come and ruin your day. Being pushed up makes it so it's very hard to avoid the gank, and you may end up tossing the entire lead and basically losing the game off a single death. That is why there is a completely different strategy to punish these players while being at a safe distance, called freezing. Freezing, or just keeping the minions on your side of the wave, is a strategy that you could easily implement to gain a lead, or to gain a lead that you have lost previously. Do it, you just have to make it so that the enemy is actually forced to push the wave back into you, and you keep the minions on your side of the lane. If you remember my video on Intro to Tempo, this is exactly the concept that I was going over when I was explaining the concept of cheater recalling. By pushing this third wave into tower, the minions actually don't reach a neutral wave state, as the enemy minions, as they are arriving, will actually meet our minions under the tower and basically screw up the neutral wave state position that it basically has. This makes a scenario where their minions are actually forcefully pushing, and we have successfully manipulated the wave into freezing on our part. So right here, if we just call our ally jungler to come when we manipulated the wave into freezing, we could easily get a free kill, especially since if they give up EXP and CS because our jungler is bot side, it means they are going to lose the game. The benefits of freezing are fairly obvious. You just are able to deny the enemy champions CS and EXP if your jungler is nearby, and if not, you are still able to play aggressive while being in a safe scenario. But with benefits, there are obviously downsides. So if you are playing against a champion like Bard, this means the Bard could roam wherever he wants to, and basically your team will get screwed over if you do not force a play in the bot side sooner or later. And also, this means that you do not have priority to help out for objectives like, as I said, Rift Scuttler, Rift Herald, or even Dragon. So when you're trying to take into factor when you want to freeze and when you want to push, it really just depends on you, as every single game in League of Legends is different, and there are so many different scenarios where you are placed upon. There's no real right or wrong answer, and it really just comes down to testing and seeing what works for you. But before we leave off this episode, I am actually going to explain to you how many minions you need when you are freezing and exactly how it works in that sort of fashion. There are actually 3 different types of minions that we need to take into factor: cannon minions, melee minions, and caster minions. Basically, there are only going to be 3 melee minions and 3 caster minions on every wave, and in every single third wave, there is actually going to be 1 cannon. In order from strongest to weakest, and what gains more gold and more EXP, the order goes from cannon minions to melee minions to caster minions. I know this may seem a bit complex and you may not understand exactly how it works, but basically what I'm trying to say is freezing is not like something where you know exactly when you freeze. It's more something that you have to build up. This is because freezing is more of like a theory. Basically, we are using many different principles and we are forming it into one big thing where we want to get this one specific result. So let us look at an example real quick. So there are 2 red melee minions over here. There are 2 blue caster minions over here. Well, obviously, as I stated earlier, the power of the minions go from cannon, melee, to casters, right? So obviously, since the melee minions are stronger than the caster minions, it's going to be pushing into the blue side. But what happens in the exact same scenario if the red melee minions are actually pushed up? So in this case, it would actually be freezing as the next blue side minion wave comes up in time and basically reinforces them faster than the red side minions would. With all this said, I'm just trying to say that knowing when a wave is freezing heavily depends on, first of all, what type of minions there are, and second of all, what type of minions are actually alive. So let's just say, is the melee up, the caster up, or the cannon up? And 3, is there an uneven number of minions? So let's just say, does red side have 3, blue side have 4, or does our side have 5 and their side has 2? So on that note, let's use a simpler version at first so you guys could more understand exactly how it works. Using this chart, it basically shows that if you have more than the number that is listed, it will basically break out of the even lane state and start pushing. So right here on the blue side, let's actually look at the number 2. So what this number 2 means is if there are 2 red minions here, let's just say 2 red melee minions, it actually causes an even wave state at that specific interval. However, if you go over that, let's just say there are 3 red melee minions, it will actually push into you. So as I stated, there are a lot more variables and it's very hard to fit that in a video, but it's basically just a simple version that you could use in the time being as you're getting more used to it. Well, we are going to leave you guys off on that note. I know this video is a bit complicated and there is a lot of hard topics and I kind of brushed over almost everything and didn't go too much in detail on that. I will be explaining it in a future video and don't worry, just try learning these freezing pushing techniques at first. Thank you guys very much for watching this episode of How to ADC. Peace out.